Welcome back to Coffee, Kids, and Crazy. I am
Yeah.
Seth here with Brittany, and
Hello.
we have a great episode today.
Oh, yes. It's so good. We had to have part 1 and part 2.
Uh-huh.
Oh, it's going to be good.
We got a lot to talk about.
We do.
What are we talking about, Brittany?
We're talking about sex.
Talking about sex with your children.
Yes.
Specifically today, that's kind of the direction
That
we're
is
going to go.
The main event.
Yep.
So-
Birds and the bees and the memes.
And the memes.
We have memes.
Can't forget the memes. So we were looking at what memes would be perfect for this topic.
Uh-huh.
And again, we'll post these on our social media. So when this episode's released, it will get it to you. You can find it there.
Potentially the reason you're listening is because you saw our awesome memes and you
Yes,
had to
our
come
meme
listen
game
to us
is
talk
so
about
much fun.
Our meme game is strong.
So this
I'm a meme dealer.
You're a
I have
meme.
helped people survive 2020 with my memes.
I believe it.
I'm a hustler.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so this meme is a picture of it's a clip from the movie Beautiful Mind, and he's at a whiteboard or a blackboard with chalk, and it's got crazy equations going
Yeah.
on, and this look of being perplexed over what he's doing. And above it, it says, "You attempting to explain where babies come from."
Not always easy.
No, it feels
You got to
like
have a beautiful mind to be able to communicate where babies come
that.
from.
And it's just, can you imagine, I remember doing this, and it's just a delicate process, especially depending on the age group. So it comes through your belly button, Mom?
Yeah.
No, that's not what I said.
Don't go there yet. We need to talk about
I know.
my meme.
I'm just saying
I
this
know.
is a real
Challenge
This is what it feels like. It's like you're doing geometry and also
with a 4-year-old, 5-year-old.
yeah.
Yeah.
So your
Geometry.
meme, this is your
My
meme.
meme says, when you're ready for another baby and you're dropping hints to your man like, and then it's a skillet with 1 egg and 5 pieces of bacon that totally look like sperm swimming towards the egg. And you know the wife is cooking them and saying, honey, can you flip the bacon over for me? And he's like, are you trying to
What
tell me
is
something?
happening?
Yes, I would like the bacon to touch the egg
Yes.
and make a baby, a bacon baby.
So those are our memes for today's topic,
Mm-hmm.
just to jump into there. So if you're not uncomfortable, get ready. It's going to be good.
Yep.
This is one of my favorite things that we're talking about for parents, because I feel like it's so needed. And
More than ever before
yes,
with the internet.
completely. And if you guys can get this and do this, it's going to be amazing. So I'm excited. So go ahead.
Which is the part I want to talk about is something called the law of first mention. So that basically means whatever a child learns first about a subject, that's what they believe to be true,
Yeah.
even if it's not true. Because they learn it first, they think it's true. So the importance of talking to our kids about sex, explaining,
Yeah.
figuring out the crazy equations and trying to explain where the babies come from is so important, because if someone else, whether it's the internet, whether it's the teacher,
Yeah.
whether it's the friends at school, if some kid at school is like, you ever seen this, and shows your kid a video of porn, it's like,
Yeah.
if that's the first interaction they have with sex and the first conversation they have, they think that's true and reality. And then you as the parent come in at 13, 14, 15 years old, and you're like, you know what, I think it's time to talk about the birds and the bees, but I'm really scared because I've avoided this conversation your whole stinking life, but I need to talk about it. Like, oh, it's okay, Mom, Dad, I already know. You already know. Where'd you learn? Oh,
Well,
my friend
Johnny
showed
told
me.
me, yeah.
Johnny told me. Johnny showed me. I've been seeing this stuff. Like, oh no. Now everything you tell them about sex fights against what they believe is now true. Even though you may be telling them the truth and what they believe is not the reality you want them to believe in,
Right.
now your conversation is butting up against what they think is true, versus you've been the first one to talk about sex. You've had these conversations. You've been talking about this for a while. And now little Johnny comes with his phone and says, have you ever seen this? Now that has to butt up and fight against
Right.
what you've told them simply because you talked first. So being the first one to talk especially
Yeah.
what's happening, especially how accessible sex is
On
every device
everything.
in their pockets all the time.
When it's not even sex or straight porn. It's the soft everything.
Yeah.
And it's that everything is sexualized, and it's just so frustrating to watch an ad pop up on your kid's game.
Yes.
And it's like, people kissing or they're doing this inappropriate act that has no need to be on this game that's rated, for children. It's just so frustrating that it's just completely in their face. And again, like, I just think, we've got obviously a farm, and you talk about this law of first mention. And I know from raising animals that if I am the first thing that this thing has any kind of, response to, like I'm feeding it, I'm giving it water. Like we had a baby turkey. I didn't have any other chicks with it, and I was it. And so I made this impression on it.
Yeah.
And that's like, so it still responds to me as
if you're a mom.
Yeah.
Basically.
Which is just the same idea that there's this imprint that happened. And, it's now going to fight this because this is the first bit of information I got.
Yeah.
And I think that even when, Johnny shows a picture or draws a picture because they saw something or whatever, it's, this place of, curiosity being met with what feels like truth. So it feels safe. So then we take it on as real.
Yes.
So, one of the big reasons why we want to talk about this is because I feel like so many parents are intimidated to have this conversation because of their own stuff. And so we're just kind of hoping that our kids will be okay. And then we're just like letting them out into the ocean with the sharks.
And no cage.
And nothing to help prepare them for, hey, sharks
bleeding.
Yeah.
You're swimming with the sharks and you got a little cut.
It's dangerous out there. And this is the reality of, I remember walking in the mall and passing Victoria's Secret, and my girls would be like, why are they in their panties? And I remember Delaney yelling, Daddy, don't look, because she just would know that this isn't okay.
Yep.
That Daddy would see anybody else in panties other than Mommy.
Yep.
And, so, I mean, she was tiny. She was probably 6. I remember walking around in the mall there, and I loved this thing that she was warring against. But the reality is it's so hard for parents to engage in even like that kind of conversation.
Yeah. And if you haven't had that conversation, potentially your little girls are walking and going, is that what I'm supposed to do?
Right.
Is that how
I'm
I'm
supposed to? Should I show everyone my panties?
Yeah. They think that's normal rather than Daddy, don't look.
Right.
Being normal.
Exactly. And this is the hard tension that I feel like our parents are having to live in, is they don't know how we do this.
Yeah.
Or when to do it.
And another thing that we wrote down here in our notes is this is not one conversation.
Right.
This is many conversations. Different levels. Yep. Evolve. It's an evolving conversation that I think needs to happen really, really young. Start really, really young, and continue. Like, we're going to get into a conversation you've had with your older daughter.
But you have tell us about like what you do, because you've got the younger kids and you're more in the just starting, where I've had a lot more conversations given that we were 15. So we may have had all of them. I think by now we've had all of them actually. But
you've had a lot. Way more than me for sure.
Maybe not all of them. She's not engaged, so I haven't gotten there yet. But
I also, because I value the law of first mention so much too, I thought, I want to start this at 4 or 5 years old. So when my daughter was 4 or 5, we started the conversation. When my older son, 4 and 5, boom, we're in.
Yeah.
My younger son right now is 4, so we haven't had the conversation. We haven't started it yet, but he's been around listening to other stuff. But I found this book. I don't know how I found it. It's called Good Pictures, Bad Pictures. There's a junior version and an older kids version. The junior version is for 3 to 6 year olds. How to talk to your kids about bad pictures on the internet at 3 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. I've had so many parents like, what? Yes.
Exactly. Which is, please go get this book. If
You
you've
need
got
to get
a
this
3
book.
to 6-year-old, do
Yeah.
yourself a favor. I mean, what is it? $10?
I think it's like 14 or something like that.
Great.
And
It's 3 lattes.
I
Skip pumpkin spice.
No, I love this book so much. Here's what I do. I didn't write the book. I found the book. We contacted the publisher. I buy them by the case. I take them
wow.
all around the world with me. I put them in my stinking suitcase.
Wow.
And I tell parents, if you buy one book only, do not buy mine. Buy this.
So good.
Because if you don't have, like, all the other stuff is really, really good and important. But if your kid goes down the rabbit hole of porn because you didn't talk to them about it, and I even tell parents, like, if you can't afford it, let me know. I will give you this book. But one of the things I love, so the junior version is really simple. It just explains, like, hey, you go to the beach, you go on vacation, you take family pictures. You're at Disneyland and you're in line and you're taking pictures because you're about to go on the ride. Good pictures.
Yeah.
Bad picture. And so they just explain the difference between what's a good picture, what's a bad picture. The amazing thing with the older kids version that is so powerful to me is they actually explain the difference between what they call the feeling brain and the thinking brain.
Wow.
And so when you see pictures that make your body feel good and your body, like, is responding like, wow, that feels super good. You have to know how to get out of your feeling brain into your thinking brain and go, just because it feels good doesn't mean I should. Look at it. Keep looking at it. It doesn't mean it's right. And so they do a really great job of teaching kids. Wow. I was reading, I'm like, oh, I can use this for adults. This helps me. Like, it feels, something pops up on your screen. Wow, that feels really good. Oh, it's wrong. Yeah. How do I choose to think now instead of just feel? And they even talk about addiction, the dangers of addiction in the older kids book. That is like, this book is absolute genius. Yeah, I can't talk about it enough. But for me, that's how we introduced this conversation to our kids, was to say, of course, we had already talked about, like, mommy and daddy have babies. We make babies. My kids were so small, we didn't explain everything then. But for me, I was like, this whole conversation around seeing bad pictures, it's not just bad pictures. It's when you're at the beach and like, oh, that girl is dressed, her swimsuit's different than mommy's swimsuit. It's important to know this kind of conversation and have it. So that's how I introduced it and started it with my kids, was that book.
Yeah, we were just at the beach this summer, and one gal had on a very revealing bottoms, and Lincoln is just like, oh my goodness. He's looking, his eyes to the sky,
bouncing.
His head is all over. And I'm looking at him like, what is happening right now? And then I realize what's in front of us, and which it's just like, okay, you already know something's making you feel uncomfortable, and how do I navigate, and he's had conversations with Ben as well. But I think that's such a good book. I love the resource that's there, because I don't think that parents are engaging at a young age or thinking about that first impression and that kind of, that we're meant to lead this conversation. So that's crucial. And I think that I've heard so many parents get kind of caught up on the, when do we do it? How do we do it? Knowing that it's more than one conversation. It's not a,
I don't have to explain every single thing right now at 4 years old.
Exactly. And I remember I met with or I did a conference with this lady that was a sex therapist, and she talked about, really making sure that you don't make children's genitals funny names, like the wee wee
penis
and the the wee wee and the flower,
Captain
or the
Winky.
Exactly. None of that should happen. It needs to be real, what it is.
Yeah.
So, we've talked about, normally when I'm talking to them about it, we'll say your penis starts, Lincoln says that, I'm like, have you taken a shower lately? That's usually my first response. Then it's, go talk to your daddy. I don't know. But I think our concept of sex has been so perverted by the world that we're afraid to talk about it in our own home with our children when we're meant to lead the conversation.
Yeah.
And so I want to encourage parents that this is your job in the family, is having these conversations.
Yeah.
And you have to be ready to have a conversation, and you have to remove your own anxiety. Maybe there's some trauma or something that's there. Go get that healing, or go as far as you can, but you need to not bring your own stuff into this conversation. So I love Meg Meeker. She's an author. She's a doctor. She's had some phenomenal books out there. But I was reading this book, and it's called Strong Mothers, Strong Sons. And this woman is going to counseling with her, and she starts to say how she has this amazing relationship with her son. They've been pretty much bonded his whole life. He turns 12, and all of a sudden his grades are failing. He's losing friends. He's really disrespectful. Everything shifts in his behavior, and everybody's like, it's just a season. It's just a season.
Yeah.
You know, he's junior high. This is
He'll
normal.
come out of this.
And this mom's like, this is not true. Like, this is not, something's happened. Something's going on. And she just won't shut off this instinct that says there's something that's happened. And so she makes a point to do what she can to create a safe place for her son consistently, because she's like, I want this relationship back, and I don't know what happened.
Yeah, didn't she like go into his room every night and just talk to him about his day?
Sits on his bed, just collecting dirty clothes, you know, and
looking for a reason to be in there and talk.
And finally, one day he opens up and tells her how he encountered this man on his way home from school, and this man forced himself against him, and they had no idea.
Yeah.
And the counselor is just like, wow, how did you do that? She's like, I just kept going in to be a safe place. And the breakthrough that happened, and this is the thing, is like, you know, parents, you know, when something happens with their kids, and it's our job to make sure that we're having this conversation so that our kids can build trust, so sex isn't so scary.
Yeah.
Because I think sex becomes so scary and shameful because of what the world's done to it.
Yeah.
And it takes away the opportunity for us to have this vulnerable exchange of, you know, covenant and intimacy with our family and our children, and teach them about this. It's been perverted because of the world.
Yeah.
So that's why we have to jump in there first. We have to be willing for it to be awkward, but we've got to just press in.
You know, one thing I've seen a lot with parents is, and that story illustrates it really well, is the mom. Some parents are like, hey, I'm a safe place. You can talk to me about anything. Like, I kind of don't really feel safe because you're telling me how safe you are. But what the mom did is just go in, she's picking up clothes. She's like, hey, how's your day? What's going on? Just chatting, talking. She's showing she's a safe place, not trying to tell her son she's a safe place. I think that's a huge factor. Sometimes parents scare their kids from talking to them by how they tell them the approach. They're telling them, I'm so safe. You can talk to me about anything. I want you to talk to me about everything.
Why aren't you telling me there's something going on? It becomes this like they're in a forced conversation. And I think the storyline is it took this mom like 6 months before the son actually opened up. And he was able to get healing. And it's a beautiful story as far as how it ended and just what this mom did. You know, and I think that going back to knowing that this is a more than one-time conversation, I don't know what their conversation was as, you know, her as a parent with around sex, but I know for us, like when we first talked about where babies come from and how this works, the first conversation was when I think Addie was going to be born and Lainey was almost 5. So, you know, she thought for sure it was coming from my belly button. Like it's not coming from my belly.
Baby was in your belly.
It was, yeah. And so, you know, I go through, you know, there has to be a daddy to make a baby. And that, you know, daddy has something and mommy has something, and then they meet, and then God created this. So again, it was a very simple conversation. And then she knew that it didn't come out of my belly, and that, you know, this is a beautiful thing that happens between a mommy and a daddy, and how we make a family. Yeah. You know, and so it was a really fun conversation around that. And then let's fast forward. This is a great story.
Yeah, I love it.
So fast forward, the next time we kind of really dive into the conversation of sex, I think she's in 4th grade, maybe 5th grade, somewhere right in there. I think she was 4th grade. And this boy walked up to her and said, I want to sext you. And she tells us, and I'm like, what does that mean? And she's like, I don't know. He's weird. I'm like, cool. That's a great response. But I'm like, okay, we have to have this conversation. So I take her out and we talk about like, so what is sex? And she says, well, it's when a mommy and daddy come together and they start kissing and they're on the couch and the couch turns red. I was like,
where did that come from?
I have no idea. And I was like, okay, that's not completely accurate. You know, I'm just thinking, wow, we have gone a long ways from the first conversation is what I was thinking. So here I am, we're in the car and I have a key and the ignition. So I start talking about the penis looks like this key and the vagina is kind of like where I'm going to stick it, and, I didn't turn the car on, but I could have, that
when we were having this conversation yesterday, like, start your engine. Vroom.
Exactly. So, I'm trying to give her a visual of, what, how they kind of look and how they work together. And I said, you can't make a baby with two vaginas. You can't make a baby with two penises because they have to have how God created this, that you need both parts. And so we talk through that and I talk about, how the penis gets large and then when, how it needs the semen to come out.
This. Oh.
And so that, there's something called an ejaculation and then the white stuff comes out.
You're
and
just going for it.
I was just, I'm here. We're having this conversation.
The couch does not turn red.
No red couch at all.
The penis gets big and the couch does not turn red.
No. And so, and I'm talking about, she's obviously seen me have my period. And so I talked about, this is why I have one, because there's an egg. And so, she's asking all these questions, which is great. We're in the car at this kind of like a drugstore and we're going to go and get fingernail polish. That was like what we were doing. And she's asking all these questions and it's this beautiful conversation. And I said, do you understand? She's like, yeah, I understand. I said, and if you have any questions, you just come and ask me. I said, and you don't have to worry about anything. Yeah. And I'll be honest with you and I'll tell you and we can talk about it. I did invite Ben to come with us. Like I asked her, I said, do you want Daddy to come too? And she was like, no, I think I just want Mommy. So we did have that interaction at first. But so then
all of that, and you get out of the car, go into the store to get fingernail polish.
Yes.
You're like looking at the colors. What's going to be a nice color, my girl? Let's get some.
I know.
Good. Maybe we need a file too.
And she says, Mommy, what's the white stuff that comes out of the man's penis again?
Right in the store.
Right in the store. As there's people walking around. And I had this one lady that just starts to smirk and walk past us. And this guy turns around and walks the other direction.
Because they're all shamed.
Because,
embarrassed.
And I'm thinking in this moment, like, I have this opportunity to respond or react to what the world tells me. That this is an inappropriate conversation to have right here. Yeah. And, if I was talking, I've heard lots of crude things said all over at different places. Mm-hmm. So it's not that we can't talk about sex, but this conversation, even with a child, it's my child, that's even worse.
Yeah.
So I said, well, that's the semen, honey. That's what comes out.
Right in the store.
Right in the store.
People around. Mm-hmm. She's announcing her questions
she
out
was,
loud. Might as well be on the loudspeaker.
We were just
aisle 7. What's the white stuff? And you just go for it.
I did. And the biggest reason is because I didn't want her to associate any shame around the topic of sex.
You're creating a safe place to talk.
I didn't want her to think that she couldn't ask me when I just told her anytime.
Ask me anytime.
You can.
Yeah.
And so I think this is where we get caught up is that we let other people dictate how we're going to parent.
Yeah.
And, we got back in the car and I said, this is a conversation for our family. We want to make sure that we, because some mommies and daddies haven't had this conversation with your friends. I said, and it's their conversation to have. So any questions you have, you talk with me or Daddy. Yeah. And so I did bring it in that sense of like, we're not going to go to the school and say, guess what I just learned?
Yeah.
That's not what we're doing. But at the same time, I mean, we have really moved through, and that was quite conversation number 2 that we've had of many now. But that was probably the biggest one as far as all the terms and all of that.
And we're going to get into some of those other conversations in the next episode.
The next one.
But because we started this with law of first mention, being the first one to talk, being okay with these conversations, embracing them, talking about them, like just going for it.
Just doing it.
One thing we need to bring up is the whole education system right now,
Yeah.
at least in America. I just got an email. We were talking through this episode yesterday. I get an email right around the same time that's from my church, basically saying, congregation, here's what you need to be aware of
Get
that they're
ready.
attempting to pass right now in our city about sex education and some of the stuff they're teaching and some of the stuff the parents,
Yeah.
people had brought up at the board meetings or whatever meetings they were. And I'm like, well, this is exactly what we want to talk about. One thing we want you to be aware of as parents is you want to know what the school is going to teach, when they're going to teach it, what
your rights are.
what your rights are, what you can back out of, what you can say no to, all of that. You want to know every state, city. I know my city is different than my state overall.
Yeah.
And you're in California, so California has been more
California's more progressive in this conversation.
in this
for sure.
conversation. I know in California, at least, they're saying things to, I think it's third graders, like potentially you're not a boy, or potentially you're not the gender you were born with. And you want to ask yourself questions like, am I really a boy? Are you really a girl? And I'm like, I actually, as a parent, do not want you to have that question going through your head at school at 8 years old.
Yeah.
So you want to know that stuff. You want to know what they're teaching, what they're saying. My church has sent that to us. Potentially your church has sent that to you, or they know as well some resources you can get a hold of. But you want to know what they're going to teach, when they're going to teach it, what your rights are, so that you can make sure you're in charge of this conversation. That was my choice as well in picking a school. I said, when we lived in Los Angeles, my wife and I walked into a public school and said, I don't feel right. Something doesn't feel right. And I'm not afraid to send my kids to a public school. I don't mind it. I actually think my kids are going to be leaders, and I've been training them to be leaders in a school where people may not believe in Jesus. But I walked into the school, I'm like, I don't feel right about this. And my wife is like, what is it? I'm like, I don't know. And then I realized, like, oh, I want to be the one that leads this conversation. I want to talk about the transgender stuff, homosexual stuff. I want to talk about sex with my kids, but I want to be in charge at my pace.
Yeah.
I do not want you throwing my kids in the ocean when I'm still trying to get the floaties on in the shallow end.
Yeah.
We need the shallow end, no sharks. We need the floaties. I want to be in charge. So we want to encourage you to make sure you are educated in what the society is trying to educate your kids in.
Totally. And I think that, I remember when Delaney was in 7th grade, she had to take sex ed in a public school. And it was a co-ed class. They didn't separate them. And the teacher sent us all the material beforehand, which I was really grateful for. And so one of the things that they watched was a live birth, a woman giving birth, and you saw the whole thing.
Wow.
And I was just like, wow, there's the beauty and a miracle of a birth, but I cannot imagine a bunch of 12-year-olds watching this and anyone walking away with something actually that was productive.
Yeah. The girls are like, I don't think I ever want to do that.
And the boys are, probably more
Encourages
curious
abortion.
of what's going on and what they're seeing, and probably also just like overwhelmed. So there's so much. So I asked Delaney at the time, I said, do you want to watch this in the class? Or do you want to be absent that day? I said, I think it's really good information, but I think you're going to get way more out of it if you and I watch it together, and we can stop it and we can talk through everything that's happening, and you can ask questions without shame or embarrassment.
And you can be at the same level. You know exactly what the other kids watched in class. You're not missing out on something they've seen.
And it was a requirement. So, we communicated with the teacher, like, this got watched. Thank you so much. She's going to be absent. Because I'm just like, what's going to happen in that room is nothing productive.
No.
Absolutely. Like the goal of having this exposure in their biology class that turned sex ed was, I'm like, this is stupid.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I would feel uncomfortable with a bunch of 12-year-old little boys and girls watching this video.
Oh yeah.
So again, we want to just make sure that you're paying attention to what is being presented at your schools. Because I know in California, we've got some really serious laws that are being passed, and we've got some new curriculum that's coming out that is, it's very intense what they're proposing for even age 5.
Mm-hmm.
So
same with Austin, Texas, where I'm at.
And so if you're not paying attention, please do yourself a favor and start engaging and ask questions. Hey, what is the requirement that you have from the state to teach my child about sex?
Yeah.
And when does it start? Can I review what you're going to be teaching? Because there's a requirement, but they only have to do 10% of it.
Yeah.
And some teachers want to do 100% of it because it depends on the teacher that you get.
Yeah.
So again, I would be really encouraging you to engage in these conversations so that you start asking the schools, what are they trying to teach? And that imprint that's happening, especially at 5. I don't want that to be confused and get into their mind that this is something that's what sex is normal about.
Yeah.
So
all of this is crazy, feels crazy, scary. I want to finish with a good story.
Yeah. So let's bring some hope. There's lots of hope.
I obviously had the conversation with my daughter when she was really young about good pictures and bad pictures. I'd started that conversation. She had the language. We chose to put her in a Christian school because I wanted to be in charge of the conversation at that age. Much younger. I think she was 3rd grade, much younger than Delaney when they're watching that video. But she's in a Christian school. She has her Google Chromebook. They all have their Chromebooks.
Right.
They're all online. And all the filters are on, safe search, all the school protocol to make sure they can't just go anywhere online. And it's a Christian school, so it's probably up a level. So everything's in place for her to be protected, for her to be safe. But she wasn't protected. She was prepared because of the conversations that we'd had.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing. Rabbit trail real fast. We cannot protect our kids from this forever. So we need to prepare them. And that's what these conversations do, is prepare them little by little so that when it happens, they're actually ready to do something. So my daughter comes home, she goes, "Hey, Dad." I'm like, "Yeah, babe. Like, I saw a bad picture today." I'm like, "Oh, you did? What was it?" She's like, "It was a naked man." Like, "How'd you see it?" "I saw it on the computer at school. We all saw it. We were supposed to search something on Google, and it popped up." And I said, "Oh, no. Okay. What'd you do?" And she said, "Well, I quickly scrolled through because it's a bad picture and I don't want to look at it. It's poison for my mind." So she's using all the language from the book. She's like, "It's poison for my mind, just like I wouldn't go under the sink and get the chemicals and eat them because they'll poison me. I don't want that in my mind." And she was even like, she even got to the point where she said, "Dad, I can't get the picture out of my head. Like I close my eyes and I see it. Like, Dad, will you pray for me? Can we talk about it?" And I said, "Hey, what'd the other kids do?" She said, "Some of them kept looking at it and they were giggling and they were pointing and they were laughing." I said, "How'd you feel?" She's like, "I didn't feel good that they're looking at those bad pictures." And I said, "You know what? I'm really proud of you. Thank you for talking. Thank you for bringing it up. Thank you for protecting your mind and my heart." And we had this powerful moment. I'm like, you're in 3rd grade. You saw it. You knew what to do. The other kids did not know what to do. And this is in a Christian school with every boundary possible. And you are prepared when other kids are not. And I thought, thank you, Jesus, that we've talked about this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to go talk to my boys. Like, we're going to go read the book. Like, and even I've even mentioned it a couple times later. And she's like, "Dad, every time you bring it up, I see the picture again." I'm like, "Okay. Yeah, we're going to pray again." But that's a fun story for me. Because like my girl knew what to do. Yeah. She felt safe to talk to me. She came and it was amazing. As a dad, I was like, this is what I wanted. This is the whole thing I wanted.
Which just is if you were to put it in the perspective of the garden, there's if sin happens and they're hiding from God. But what happened is instead of accepting this thing as sin, she ran to you. Yeah. And this is the exchange of vulnerability,
to me,
which is what we want our children to do when they encounter these things, because we have to teach and foster them in What do we do?
Yeah.
Because again, the billboards of Victoria's Secret are not going anywhere.
No.
They're getting worse.
Yeah.
There's more of them than ever.
Yeah.
So what are we going to do to prepare our children to not let the world define who they are and how they should be seen and the worth that they are?
Yep.
So this is so good. I'm glad we're doing another part of this.
I know.
But this is kind of the younger age. And I mean, again, if you could take anything away, it's get the book.
Get the book and start talking.
And start talking.
And I think that's it. You had conversations that weren't shameful. I had conversations early that are not shameful.
Mm-hmm.
When my daughter had the opportunity to come to me or hide in shame, she came to me. She saw me as a safe place. Why? We'd been talking.
Yep.
We talked about vaginas and penises. We talked about, and so there was no shame and there was a bunch of safety. And that's what conversations do.
Yes.
When you start young, you talk normal, treat it like it's something we need to actually talk about.
And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
Amazing.
And that's what
Such a gift.
It is. And that's what we want sex to be known for in our families is not a shameful conversation, but an exciting opportunity to go deeper in vulnerability and to teach about covenant.
Yeah. Hey, you know what we should do at the end of this?
Okay. What
Pray.
should we do? Okay. You
Can
want
we
to?
pray? Yeah.
Go for it.
I just, Father, thank you for sex. Thank you for families. Thank you for this gift. Thank you for every parent listening, every child they represent. Thank you that we can be prepared. And I pray for every family that any shame that's tried to come would just be removed right now, that there would be no shame around this.
Yeah.
That there'd be no fear for the parents to talk about it, to open these conversations up. God, we pray right now for the words for the parents to say, that your peace would be there when they talk, your love would be there when they talk, that every parent listening would have grace on their life to create the safe place, to make this a healthy conversation, and to prepare their kids so their kids know what to do when this comes. God, we pray grace over every family and the removal of shame. Yeah. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. That's good.
That's good.
All right. Go
Talking
do it, guys.
about sex. Go do it.
Go talk about sex.
And we'll see you in another episode to talk about it again. Bye.